Hi everyone, I'm Kim from Darn It Workshops, and today I'll be showing you how to do some botanical monoprinting. With this technique you can use things that you already have around your garden to create these really gorgeous prints that will be different every time. You can get really experimental with them, you can do different colours, or you can just stick to black and white if you prefer. And depending on the time of year you'll be able to find different leaves and different sizes and shapes to really make it an individual print. And in different parts of the country as well you'll get really different effects. So these are ones that I've done in loads of different places, and I find every place I go has a really different set of leaves and it's just really fun to experiment with. So I've got a big pile of greenery here, so even things like dandelions will be really good at the moment because they've got loads of veins on them, but I've only just picked these ones so they might not work all that well, because once they're freshly picked they tend to be a bit too kind of watery still, so they sometimes come out a bit strange. So ones like that, if they've got clumps of leaves you want to take the individual leaves off. Something like that that's a little bit waxy might be a bit tricky. The flatter the leaf the better really. Again, that one doesn't have many veins so it wouldn't work particularly well and it wouldn't be all that pliable. And something like that one, because it's quite 3D, you wouldn't get that good a print from it. So what you need is a tray or a piece of plastic or a piece of glass, something just really smooth and flat. I don't tend to use glass all that much just because I'm a bit worried about it shattering, but if you've got some around the house that will work well. So then you need printing ink. A lot of the time I get people asking me if they could use acrylic for this, but acrylic dries way too quickly. And I'm doing this on a really sunny day, so this is going to dry incredibly quickly. So then you need a roller. So I prefer those black rollers to the red one that I showed you a second ago, because they've got a much better weight to them. So you put a little bit of ink on and then you're going to roll it around your tray, because if you use it straight as it is, like you see how there's kind of like long kind of lines in that just means the ink's a little bit too thick. So if you use it like that, then you'll just get big black splodges rather than more interesting prints. So you're going to roll it around and kind of push some to the side just to thin it out a little bit. So you want that kind of velvety texture. And as you roll it, you don't want to push down with the roller too much. You want to kind of do a light pressure backwards and forwards like that. And you're looking for that sort of kind of orange, peely, velvety kind of texture. And you're listening for a really good squelchy sound as well, which you can hear a few seconds back. And you can see, like I said, with it being a really hot day when I did this, it's drying really quickly. So it's already starting to go a little bit matte. And you want it to still look a little bit kind of watery. So you want to make sure the roller's evenly coated and then roll over one of your leaves. So this is a big rhubarb leaf. So this has lots of different veins and interesting things to it. But like you can see, because it's freshly picked, a lot of water's coming out of it, so something like this will work a lot better. So just going to roll over it. And then you want a separate piece of like perspex or glass or something to roll onto, just so you're not getting it all over the place and it's easier to clean afterwards. So that's got a good coating of ink on it. So then you're going to transfer it onto a piece of paper. And then I'd use a clean roller, but you can, if you want, just push down on it if you don't have two rollers. Then go over it, and the first one's always a bit of a pancake in that it doesn't end up all that good. So that's quite a vague print, but if I reprinted that quite a few times, it would kind of flatten that bit of greenery down and turn it into something much more interesting. So this one's got some really interesting details on it, and because it's a really flat leaf, it should work really nicely. Sometimes your leaves will get stuck to your roller a little bit, so you can just peel it off like that. So be really careful with it. And make sure it's really evenly coated. And I'm just kind of putting these down randomly, but you can kind of create an image with it. I've had a few times where people have made kind of forests with things. So if any of your bits of greenery stay attached, just peel it off. So you can see the difference between those two, and because that's a really nice flat leaf, it's worked really well. So with that you can see it's already dried out loads, so I'm going to put a little bit more ink on that. And I'm going to use that leaf a second time, and every time I use it it'll end up looking a little bit more interesting. But it does break it down a little bit. So you can see on this one, it's a much fainter print, but it's got some really lovely textures. And even without putting more ink on it, you can use that again if you like. But I think it's only going to be able to work one more time. It's getting a little bit too broken down. So with that dandelion leaf, because the middle stem of it is quite thick, that gives you a much more kind of prominent dark colour than all of the veins around it, whereas on that second print you get much more interesting textures coming through. And you can just keep working with that for a little while as well. And when it folds over like that, sometimes you get really lovely effects from it. So just have a really good experiment, try lots of different leaves that you can find. If you're out on a walk, look out for some interesting leaves and other bits of greenery as well. You can use grass and all sorts of things like that, and just create some really interesting images with it. I'd love to see what you make as well, so if you'd like to send me any pictures or ask any questions, I'll pop my email address on the screen. And thank you so much for watching this. Have a good day.